First comes love, then comes the confession, and after that the world of both individuals changes. Everyone would say there is nothing better than this, but the reality is completely different. In plain words, it is slavery. One gives their time while the other steals it. One makes a slave and the other becomes one. Someone loses and someone wins. If you want to build a reputation in public, you have to win at any cost, because love is war. The one who confesses first loses this love war. At the beginning of the story, we are shown Shuchian Academy, where the children of rich people study. Then some students get very excited seeing two people and say, "Look, the vice president and the president look so good together." Then we are introduced to these people. The student council vice president, Kaguya Shinomiya, is the only daughter of a wealthy family, excels in many skills, and is the sole heir to her family's inheritance. Then we are told about the student council president, Miyuki Shirogane, who topped every exam, which led to him being made the student council president, along with the 200-year-old golden chain of Shuchian Academy. Those students again start talking about how these two are truly made for each other. After that, they both go inside the student council office. There, Kaguya gives Miyuki tea and says, "It seems the kids outside are gossiping about us dating." Miyuki says, "What do kids know? Just ignore them a bit." But in their minds, they were both thinking the exact same thing. If the other person begged and confessed their love, they might consider going on a date with them. However, 6 months pass by just thinking like this. Nothing happens between them, and now this waiting has turned into a war. So it remains to be seen who will confess their love first. Then a girl is shown named Chika Fujiwara, and she is also a member of the student council. Chika then takes out 2 movie tickets and tells them, "I got these 2 tickets from winning a lottery, but my family has forbidden me from watching this movie. That's why I am thinking that both of you could go watch it." Miyuki checks today's schedule and says, "We don't have much work today, so maybe Kaguya we can go watch." But he stops mid-sentence because he feels that this is also like a confession, and besides, it's a romantic movie. Kaguya says, "What happened, President? Were you asking me to go to the movie with you?" Miyuki gets very nervous. But then he twists the words and puts it back on Kaguya, implying that Kaguya is the one who wants to go watch the movie with him. Kaguya says in her mind, this is a very good move. But if she refuses, her whole plan will be ruined because she was the one who made the fake lottery tickets and gave them to Chika. And if she refuses, Miyuki might never ask Kaguya to go to a movie with him again. So Kaguya makes a very cute face and says, "If you are asking me to come with you, President, at least put some feelings into your proposal." Hearing this, Miyuki falls into deep thought about what he should do now. But before he could think of anything, Kaguya holds his hand and says, "I am also just a teenager looking for love." But seeing them, Chika says, "If you don't want to watch a romantic movie, how about science fiction?" Because of this, their minds get completely confused and now they needed something to eat. But there was only one rice cake in the whole room. As soon as both of them reach to take it, Chika picks it up, starts eating it, and says, "I probably have some work in the classroom," and saying this, she leaves. Because of this, neither of them is able to win this war. The next day, when Kaguya is taking things out of her locker, she sees a love letter placed there, so she takes it and goes to the student council office where she tells Chika about it. Chika asks Kaguya, "Will you go on a date with that boy?" Kaguya says, "Yes, I will definitely go because he wrote this love letter with his true feelings." But hearing this, Miyuki does not feel good at all because he did not want Kaguya to go anywhere with that boy. Then he starts imagining that if he stops her, she will call him a fool. But in reality, Kaguya is not going on a date with that boy. She's just playing with Miyuki's mind so that Miyuki himself will step forward and confess his love. But Miyuki says, "Shinomiya, you are the vice president of the student council, so you cannot get into a relationship with any student." Kaguya says, "It is nothing like that, I am just going to dinner with him." Miyuki says, "If that's the case, then I take the responsibility of telling everything to the teacher. Nothing else will happen, but you will be suspended from school." Kaguya says in her mind, "I could not imagine he would go to this extent to get his way." So showing herself as innocent, she says, "Even if I get suspended, I will still go on a date with that boy. Who knows, it might be true love, and if he is my true love, I am ready to give him both my body and soul." Hearing this, Miyuki starts imagining what exactly she means by that. As a result, Miyuki loses his cool and blurts out, "But I want you to forget that boy and not go on this date." Blushing, Kaguya says, "Yes, maybe I can think about it." Miyuki taunts her saying, "So is your true love this fragile? I get it, for you, true love is just a game that changes the moment someone else proposes." Kaguya says, "I was just saying that I could think about it, but now I won't listen to anyone and I am going on a date with him." She wanted Miyuki to come and stop her. Just then someone comes from behind Kaguya and she thinks Miyuki has come to stop her. But it is Chika who cries and says, "Please don't go on a date with him or else you will be suspended. I don't want a good friend of mine to be suspended." Kaguya says, "Okay, fine, I am not going," and Kaguya loses this particular war. A little while later, it is lunchtime, so Miyuki and Kaguya are heading back towards the student council office. On the way, they see a boy and a girl being romantic, feeding each other. Seeing this, when Kaguya enters the room, she yells, "This does not seem right to me, should such kids be in our school?" But in reality, she was blushing after seeing all that. Miyuki says, "You don't need to overthink it," and he takes out his lunch. Seeing his lunch, Kaguya is very surprised because it was the first time she had seen such a simple lunch, whereas her lunch was always prepared by many professional chefs and delivered at lunchtime, so she wanted to eat it. it. But just then Chika arrives and looking at Miyuki's lunch, she asks, "President, did you make this yourself?" He replies, "Yes, I made it." Chika says, "I want to eat a little bit too." Miyuki says, "Yes, why not?" Hearing this, Kaguya is completely shocked. She thinks she just has to ask for it and she will get it, while over here Chika was enjoying Miyuki's lunch. Just then Miyuki's eyes fall on Kaguya, who was staring at his lunch. Therefore, Miyuki thinks that Kaguya did not like his lunch at all. To prove that his lunch is good, he takes out miso soup and tells Chika, "The rice gets a bit hard by lunchtime, so eating it with miso soup makes it taste even better." And after eating it, he also asks Chika, "Do you want to try it?" Chika picks up rice with chopsticks from the exact same spot Miyuki was eating from and drinks soup from the very same cup Miyuki drank from. Seeing this, Kaguya becomes even more upset and glaring at Chika. She says, "I have a brilliant idea too." The next day, she brings a very premium lunch made for herself. Miyuki thinks it seems she felt really bad about yesterday's incident. Kaguya's plan was that upon seeing her lunch, Miyuki would ask for it, and then she would exchange her lunch with Miyuki. But Miyuki does not even pay attention to her lunch and starts eating his own. Therefore, Kaguya asks, "President, you like wiener sausages, right?" Miyuki feels that she is pitying him and offering him her lunch. So he says, "I do not need your lunch." Hearing this, Kaguya becomes extremely sad. Then she also sees a lunchbox with Chika, so she asks about it. Chika tells her, "The president made this for me." After saying this, both of them start eating their lunch. Seeing this, Kaguya becomes very depressed and thinks in anger. She is not a friend but an enemy. She just keeps eating all day and her food goes to her chest instead of her brain. I will truly never forgive her. However, seeing such a face on her, Miyuki thinks she is angry at him. So eating his food quickly, he says, "I just remembered I have a meeting today," and finishing his food, he leaves. Seeing this, Kaguya gets extremely sad. Just then, Chika comes to her and says, "Kaguya, look, I brought this for you." Kaguya sees that Chika is feeding her from her own lunch. So she eats it and she finds it very tasty. After that, she tells Chika, "You really are a very good person. I had misunderstood you until now." Chika gets shocked hearing this. So the result of today's war is that Kaguya won. After that, when Kaguya comes home, she tells her maid, "The president is really very strict. He absolutely refuses to confess his love." Her maid asks her, "Alright, tell me, if you truly fall in love with someone, would you wait for him to confess his love or would you confess yourself?" Blushing, Kaguya says, "If it ever happens that someone is about to steal the president away from me, I will step forward and confess myself." Then the scene from the next day is shown where Miyuki has bought a smartphone because he used to use a flip phone before, but now he understands that a smartphone is very necessary for everyone. He shows his smartphone to Chika and Chika gets very excited and asks, "Do you have Line?" Miyuki says, "Yes, I have Line," and says in his mind, "Now Kaguya can ask for my Line ID anytime." But Chika asks for his Line ID first. Seeing this, Miyuki gets very shocked. He thinks that he should go and ask Kaguya for her ID first, but his ego gets in the way. Over here, Kaguya also understood that Miyuki wants her to go and ask for his Line ID herself, but she also had an ego. That's why neither of them could admit defeat first. So Miyuki makes the first move and changes his profile picture to a childhood photo of himself. Seeing this, Chika says, "You are really looking very cute, President." Miyuki says, "I just put it up casually. I will change it in 3 minutes." Hearing about the childhood photo, Kaguya gets extremely excited, but she cannot ask him for his Line ID directly. So acting innocent, she starts saying, "President, you are really very mean." This technique works every time because if you call someone mean for no reason, they will feel like they made a mistake. And tears were forming in Kaguya's eyes because she had used eye drops. So Miyuki thinks he made some mistake. He says to her, "I am sorry, that was not my intention, so you take a look at my photo too, Shinomiya." As soon as he turns his phone towards Kaguya, Kaguya carefully looks at his photo. Miyuki realizes that all this was her trick and he pulls his phone away. Kaguya says, "You cannot do anything now, President. I have completely memorized it." And then she thinks in her mind, "Now go ahead and ask me for my ID." Just then Chika looks at Kaguya's phone and says, "Wait a minute, Kaguya, you have a flip phone. How will it get Line?" Seeing this, Miyuki lashes out at her and they argue for a long time. But after that, they both exchange their contact details. A little while later, Chika says, "Summer is approaching, so we should go somewhere for a trip." Both of them like Chika's idea, and Miyuki starts imagining that they will go hiking in the mountains where Kaguya will confess her love to him. So he says, "If we are going then." But before he can finish, Kaguya says, "We will go to the beach." And just like that, their war begins again. Kaguya's plan was to show off her body to attract Miyuki, leading Miyuki to confess his love to her. But Miyuki completely panics upon hearing about the beach because he doesn't even know how to swim. Therefore, he did not want to go there, so he tells Kaguya, "We will go to the mountains." But Kaguya says, "You know right, there are a lot of bugs there in the summer." Remembering this, Miyuki says, "Okay, fine, we will go to the beach." Hearing this, Kaguya becomes extremely happy. But just then her eyes fall on Chika, and seeing her figure, she realizes what a huge mistake she made. If she goes to the beach with Chika, Miyuki's attention will remain entirely on Chika. Because of this, she panics and says, "Let's just go to the mountains. The beach will be too crowded and the sun will be out so we could get tanned." But now Miyuki insists, "No, we will go to the beach, there are bugs in the mountains," and they both start fighting again. However, no conclusion could be drawn from this. So Miyuki says, "Alright, let's just ask Fujiwara, she will suggest a place." Hearing this, Chika thinks for a bit and names a place known for black magic. Chika looked very excited excited after nomming that place. But here, Miyuki and Kaguya also agree to her suggestion because they had no other choice, and just like that, the result of their war is ruined. A few days later, a boy comes to Miyuki asking for love advice. So Miyuki takes him to a room, sits down, and starts talking to him. There we find out that Miyuki knows absolutely nothing about love. Over here, we see that Kaguya was also secretly listening to their conversation because she also wanted to know what exactly Miyuki thinks about love. Meanwhile, Miyuki was in a lot of trouble because if he plainly admitted that he knows nothing, this news would spread like wildfire. Therefore, Miyuki takes a risk and asks the guy, "So tell me, how does that girl view you?" The guy tells him, "She considers me her friend." Miyuki asks him, "Has she ever made fun of you?" The guy replies, "Yes, once she asked me if I had a girlfriend or not, so I said that I don't have a girlfriend, upon which she and her friends made fun of me." Hearing this, Miyuki makes up a story of his own and tells him, "She asked you because if you don't have a girlfriend, she can become your girlfriend and you are popular among her friends." That's why those people were relieved to hear that. But girls do not show their feelings openly, so you should go and confess your love to her directly, and he starts teaching him how he should convey his feelings. Then Miyuki goes near the door and slams his hand forcefully on it, and right behind it, Kaguya was hiding. Leaning against the door, Miyuki says, "You have to say to that girl, 'I like you, become mine.'" Here, Kaguya gets extremely embarrassed and blushes. Miyuki says, "When you suddenly corner the girl against the wall, she won't be able to think much, but when your sweet voice reaches her, she will accept your feelings." The guy gets excited and says, "President, you are amazing. A guy who can date the vice president can do anything." Hearing this, Miyuki flusters a bit and says, "No, I am not dating her right now." I says, "We all thought that you two have been dating each other for a long time." Miyuki says, "No, that's not it. I now feel like she doesn't even like me and perhaps she hates me." Meanwhile, Kaguya was saying in her mind, "But I don't hate you." And over here, the guy tells Miyuki, "President, all this doesn't matter. What matters is what you think about the vice president." Thinking about it, Miyuki says, "I don't like her money and her behavior, and her attitude is also like rich people." But suddenly, he completely flips and says, "Honestly, all these things about her are very good," and he starts praising her a lot. He started saying this because he had noticed that Kaguya was secretly listening to him. After that, Miyuki tells the guy, "Until you confess your feelings to that girl, nothing will happen." The guy says, "Okay, President, I will try my best," and he starts leaving, thanking him on his way out. Then Chika comes to Kaguya and sees that Kaguya is looking very happy, so Chika asks her, "Did something happen?" But Kaguya says nothing. After that, the guy goes and confesses his feelings to that girl, and they both become a couple. On this side, Kaguya was looking extremely happy. Miyuki thinks in his mind, it's a good thing that Kaguya is looking happy. After that, the scene of the next day is shown where Kaguya looks at a magazine and asks, "What exactly is this?" Miyuki tells her, "The principal confiscated it from some student and he said that it has nothing to do with studies, so throw it away." Chika takes it, looks at it and says, "What exactly is in this?" But when she sees what's inside, she gets very embarrassed and says, "Since when did such students start coming to school?" Kaguya also reads that magazine and says, "Oh, so what percentage of kids in high school have done it for the first time?" "That is 34%. Chika says, "What, 34%, meaning 34% of people have smashed?" Chika and Miyuki start saying, "This must definitely be fake." But Kaguya reads it and says, "It all seems correct to me." Hearing this, both of them are shocked. Chika tells Kaguya, "I think you don't have experience in all these things." But Kaguya says, "Yes, I have experience with this, and that too from quite a long time ago." Miyuki starts talking about random things. Kaguya says, "Don't they teach you all this at home? In high school, all this becomes a common thing." Hearing her, Chika also starts talking about random things. Miyuki was thinking that it seems I have been left behind the most, and Kaguya thinks that now Miyuki will come and propose to her. That's why Kaguya asks Miyuki, "You know, everyone thinks we are a couple. Do you really have a girlfriend?" Miyuki dodges her question. Kaguya says, "By the way, you also have a sister, right? I thought you would definitely do it with your sister." Miyuki says, "Have you lost your mind? What are you saying?" Kaguya says, "This is common in families. I have even made a video doing it with my younger brother who was just born." Hearing this, Miyuki gets even more shocked, and Chika also couldn't understand what exactly Kaguya was saying. Kaguya says, "It seems you people are still living in the olden days." Miyuki says, "If the olden days were fine, then we prefer that." Kaguya says, "It is nothing like that. Fujiwara, you must be doing it with your dog." Miyuki says, "Is she telling the truth?" Chika says, "Don't pay attention to her words." Just then, Miyuki realizes something and asks her, "Okay, tell me, what do you mean by doing it for the first time?" Kaguya says, "Do you think I am a little kid? I know all these things. You guys are talking about kissing, right?" Then we're told that Kaguya has only been taught a few things by the time she turned 16, and her understanding of smashing is still just like a child's. Then Chika says, "President, leave all this to me," and she goes to Kaguya and whispers everything in her ear. Upon learning this, Kaguya becomes extremely embarrassed and starts saying, "All this is done after marriage, right?" After that, we're shown a small flashback where Kaguya was telling Miyuki, "I don't like you, so don't come near me." Then we are shown that it becomes night, and both of them were still working in the student council office. They have some conversation where Miyuki looks at Kaguya and tells her, "You have become more mature compared to before." Kaguya says, "Maybe that is because I have now learned how to deal with people." Miyuki says, "Well, at least I have started understanding you now." Kaguya says, "Then let's see, President, how well you understand me. So we will play the 20 questions game, but since you understand me, we will call it the 10 questions questions game, so let's begin. Miyuki also agrees to play the game, and the rule of this game was that when the person asking the questions asks all the questions and figures out the answer, they win. But the answers to those questions can only be in yes or no. After that, they start the game and Miyuki starts asking his questions. Some of the questions' answers are yes and some are no. Because of this, Miyuki starts feeling that the chit Kaguya is holding in her hand has Miyuki's name written on it. But then when he thinks about her old cold behavior, he asks his last question very carefully. But the answer to that question is also yes. That's why he feels certain that it is definitely him. Kaguya then asks him, so tell me what the answer is. Miyuki thinks for a bit and says, the answer is dog. Kaguya says, yes, right answer, let's go now. Miyuki says in his mind, it's a good thing I gave the correct answer. The scene of the next day is shown where Kaguya is going to school by car, and on the way she sees some kids walking to school. After that, the scene of the following day is shown where Kaguya is leaving her house for school and she sees that a cat has gotten stuck in the engine part of her car. The driver says, forgive me, I will bring another car for you. Kaguya says, it's okay, I will just walk. Her maid says, I can also walk with you, but Kaguya signals her. So the maid says, oh yes, if I go inside and change my clothes, Miss could get late by then. After that, Kaguya starts going alone from there, and her plan was that today she would walk to school with Miyuki. But as she was passing by a crossing on the way, she sees a little girl crying there. So she goes to her and asks her why she is crying. The girl says there are many crossings here. Kaguya says, okay fine, come I will help you cross the road, and she helps her cross the road. The girl says there are a lot of crossings on the way, please drop me to my school. So Kaguya starts taking her along and asks her, don't you have any friends who go to school with you? The girl tells her, yes I have friends, but they have now moved to the next grade. That's why now I have to go alone. So Kaguya explains to her, it is not that you have to go alone, you just wait for your friends and go with them. The girl says, you are really a genius big sister. But a short while later, a friend of that girl meets her. The girl says thank you to Kaguya and starts leaving, and here Kaguya had no idea how far she had come. She was thinking that if she gets late, she will never get permission to go to school alone ever again. And just then Miyuki arrives from behind her, sees her and asks, hey, what are you doing here? Kaguya says, oh president, you are going to be late. Miyuki says, leave my matter aside, I will reach. Tell me, what are you doing here? Being the vice president of the student council, you should reach school on time, so hurry up, sit down, I will take you to school. Kaguya says, but this will break traffic rules. Miyuki says, do you care about traffic rules right now or school rules? Kaguya becomes happy, sits on the bicycle with him and starts going, and during this ride she became very happy. Then from the next day, Kaguya starts going to school by car again. And then when she reaches school, she finds out there that for the welcome party they will have to do cosplay, and Chika was very excited about this. Kaguya was wearing cat ears, which is why she was looking very cute to Miyuki. Because of this, whenever Miyuki looked at Kaguya, his heart would beat very fast, so he makes his face very stern. Seeing this, Chika says, oh president, you are looking scary. And Kaguya feels that Miyuki did not like her look at all, so she puts cat ears on Miyuki as well. Seeing Miyuki, Chika says, president, you look weird, but to Kaguya he was looking extremely handsome, because of which she was blushing and smiling a lot. Therefore, to hide her genuine smile, she starts smiling in a weird way, making Miyuki think that Kaguya is laughing at him because he doesn't look good wearing cat ears, so he asks her about it. Kaguya says with an arrogant smile, president, you are looking very good. Hearing this, Miyuki assumes that Kaguya did not like it at all, but Kaguya tells Chika, come let's take a photo of the president. So Chika takes his photo. Miyuki starts thinking that in the future he will be blackmailed because of this photo. That's why he starts forbidding her from taking photos. Chika says, come Kaguya, now it's your turn. But Miyuki gets excited hearing this and says, okay fine, let's take a photo together. They both were staring at each other with very creepy smiles and were slowly moving closer to each other. Seeing this, Chika gets worried and feels like they are about to fight, so she takes off both of their cat ears. But then they both come to their senses and move apart, and both were saying in their minds what was about to happen just now, and maybe they were about to kiss. Then all three together say, cat ears are scary. Then they start having a meeting about what things need to be done for the welcome party, and for that, they will have to go shopping. Miyuki thinks in his mind, this is a good opportunity to go shopping with Kaguya, but he can't just say it up front. That's why he says, look, I don't have time, but maybe I can make it work. Just then Chika says, alright, let's decide this with a game. Whoever loses will have to go shopping together. And the name of this game was the restricted word game, meaning a person will write a word and give it to their opponent, but the opponent cannot see that word, and if the one who wrote the word can make their opponent say that word, the opponent will lose. After that, all three of them write and give each other their respective words. Miyuki was thinking that he would let Chika win so that Kaguya and he could go shopping together. After that, Chika starts talking to both of them like a rapper. First, she goes to Kaguya and tries to make her say her word, but Kaguya was not saying anything. She just smiles. Miyuki says, Kaguya, the game cannot run like this, you have to say something. Meanwhile, Chika starts an emotional drama. She starts saying, it seems you also don't like me, and really just like this, many students don't like me. Seeing her cry, Kaguya consoles her and says, it's not that I don't like you. Actually, I like you. Chika says, you lost. And Kaguya's word was like. Seeing this, Kaguya lashes out at her saying she cheated with her. And here Miyuki was thinking that now he cannot lose to Chika because it has become a matter of ego. So a Super Saiyan-like aura starts coming out of him and he says, Chika, now I will definitely win against you. Chika says, President, you lost too. Miyuki looks at his word, which was win. Seeing this, Kaguya says, well, we can't do anything now. A little while later, we're shown Kaguya at her house, who is very angry because Miyuki hadn't texted her yet, even though she had exchanged contact information with him quite a while ago. So her maid takes her phone and starts typing a message on her behalf. But Kaguya takes her phone back and says, I cannot message the president first. Her maid explains to her, Miss, why do you think Miyuki is not messaging? He must also be thinking about the same thing, that you should message him first, but you should just call him directly and attack. Hearing her words, Kaguya falls into deep thought, but her maid says, before she says anything else, I am going to place the call. And she makes the call and hands it to her, but on the other side, Miyuki's dad picks up the call. Hearing his dad's voice, Kaguya gets a little flustered and asks about Miyuki. His dad shouts at Miyuki saying, a girl has called. His mom says, what, a girl's call? Miyuki says, Dad, you shouldn't answer someone else's phone. After that, both of them start talking to each other. There Kaguya finds out that Miyuki is taking a bath right now, so she starts blushing, and after talking to him hurriedly, she hangs up the call. But on the other side, Miyuki was about to say something else. Because of this, she gets sad and lies down on the bed. Just then, a notification comes on her phone, and Miyuki had texted her the name of the place and the time. Her maid says, now you are happy, right? Miyuki sent you the first message. But the next day, it starts raining very heavily, due to which Kaguya could not go to Miyuki. She was insisting on going, but her maid stops her and makes her send a message that it is raining today, so we will go some other time. And over here we see that Miyuki had reached the place, but while getting drenched in the rain, he was just saying, well, she sent the first message today, so I won. A few days later, the scene of the welcome party is shown, where they had somehow completed all the preparations. Then Miyuki asks Kaguya, by the way, do you know how to speak French? Kaguya says, no, I am not very good at it. So Miyuki flexes in front of her and speaks French. Then a French student arrives there who gives them her introduction and also says something that Miyuki does not understand at all. And we find out that he had learned all this from a French dictionary. But just then, he sees that Kaguya is very easily conversing with that student in the French language. Seeing this, he says in his mind, she is truly a very big liar. And then he sees that Chika is also speaking French very well. Because of this, he gets extremely surprised, and then he sees that many students are talking with those French students. Because of this, he realizes that he is the only one who doesn't know how to speak French, and he starts thinking that if anyone finds out that he cannot speak French, they will all make fun of him. Then we are shown the headmaster, who says to himself, I did not host this welcome party just like that. I want to see if it would be right to give command of this school to the student council president. And he sends a girl named Betsy forward, who forces even the best to their knees with the weight of her words. Then that girl goes to Miyuki and says a lot of mean things to him in her language, but Miyuki doesn't understand anything, so he just keeps smiling. Seeing this, the girl starts saying even worse things to him. Just then, Kaguya arrives there and a red aura was shining in her eyes. After that, Kaguya threatens her heavily in her own language. Because of this, the girl gets very scared and runs away from there. But here, Kaguya feels that she lost her temper a little too much in front of Miyuki, and because of this, Miyuki will not like her anymore. A short while later, the welcome party ends and they are cleaning up. But Kaguya was still sad because she had said a lot of mean things to that girl in front of Miyuki. But Miyuki says, oh, let it go, I don't even know what you said to her in French. Anyway, I already told you that I don't know much French. I only understood that the girl said mean things to me and you were getting angry at her for that, so thank you. Kaguya gets happy and says to him, President, this is something I feel for you, and she says something in French. Miyuki asks, what are you saying? Tell me properly. Kaguya says, it's a secret. After that, the summer season arrives just like that, and Kaguya Shinomiya was doing some work in the student council office. Just then a girl comes there and asks her for love advice. So Kaguya asks, so tell me, what do you need advice on? The girl says, I just want to know how I can easily break up with my boyfriend. Hearing this, Kaguya gets a little nervous because she thought it would be an easy situation. But then she thinks, well, I will tell her something or the other. Then Kaguya asks her, why exactly do you want to break up with your boyfriend? The girl explains, my boyfriend suddenly came and proposed to me. That's why I hurriedly said yes to him. But since then, the distance between us has grown even more. That's why I can't understand if what I have in my heart for him is love or something else. If I can't understand it, then maybe we both should separate from each other. So Kaguya starts giving her advice. You first have to find some good qualities in that boy. The girl asks, like what? Kaguya says, like he's good at studies, good at sports, or has an angry look in his eyes. The girl says, but having an angry look in the eyes is a bad point, right? Kaguya says, oh no, having an angry look in the eyes is a good thing. The girl says, an angry look in the eyes. There is only one person around you who has an angry look in his eyes. But Kaguya cuts her off and says, you should spend a little more time with him so that you can get to know about him. Just then, Chika Fujiwara arrives there and says, I heard everything, include me too when it it comes to love advice. And then she says to the girl, if you can't understand your feelings regarding your boyfriend, then first you have to imagine your boyfriend flirting with another girl. The girl starts thinking, and here Kaguya also starts thinking about it, which makes both of them feel bad. The girl says, I didn't like this feeling. Chika tells her, this means you are getting jealous and it is clear that you love your boyfriend. The girl says, yes, I really do love my boyfriend. And here Kaguya was also lost in her thoughts. After that, Kaguya also gives a suggestion and says, you should face challenges like Romeo and Juliet. This will make your love grow even more. But the girl says, but we don't have any enemies. Chika says, no, everyone has some enemy or the other, and your enemy is society. You have to fight against society. The girl gets motivated and says, okay, now I will fight the society together with my boyfriend. And saying this, she leaves from there. Kaguya asks Chika, will all this be alright? Chika says, yes, it will be alright. And from the very next day, that girl starts collecting funds with her boyfriend to fight against society. Seeing her boyfriend, Kaguya recognizes that this is the same boy who had come to the president for love advice. Just then, Kaguya's eyes fall on Miyuki Shirogane next to her. Seeing him, she asks, President, what are you doing here? Miyuki gets a little flustered, but then he says, I saw that those people are trying to collect funds with all their hard work, so I thought I would help them. Saying this, he starts walking towards them. Seeing him, Kaguya was smiling and blushing. A few days later, a scene is shown where Miyuki was practicing volleyball, but he was very bad at sports. But he doesn't give up and keeps trying again and again because he doesn't want to get humiliated in sports class. But just then, Chika arrives there and sees him. So a flustered Miyuki asks her, what are you doing here? Chika says, I forgot something here. Miyuki starts saying in his mind, oh man, she saw me. What will she think about me now? And here, Chika was playing with the ball. So Miyuki tells her, we are going to have volleyball in sports class, right? That's why I was practicing a little because my serving is not good. Chika says, so do you want me to teach you? Miyuki says, how will you teach me if you don't know it yourself? Chika says, I know how to do it, and she shows him by serving the ball. Seeing this, Miyuki gets very shocked. Chika says to him, so do you want me to teach you, and what do you say when you request someone? Miyuki gives up and says, please teach me volleyball. Chika says, okay, President, first show me your serve. He takes the ball and shows her, but he couldn't hit the ball even once. Chika says, you have to keep your eyes open while serving. Miyuki serves again, but he fails to hit the ball again. Because of this, Chika gets angry and says, now I'm going to be strict with you, and she starts a very hard training session for him. But after such hard training, he learns to serve. Then he says, come on, now teach me how to toss and receive. Hearing this, Chika's mind is blown. A few days later, the sports class takes place and Miyuki performs very well in it, making everyone his fan. But when Kaguya looks at Chika, Chika is completely exhausted. Chika then reveals, you know, I taught this guy. Hearing this, Kaguya is surprised. When school ends, it starts raining. Today, Kaguya's driver couldn't come to pick her up because the car's tire got punctured, so she will have to walk today. Kaguya then sees a boy and a girl walking while sharing a single umbrella. Seeing this, she also feels like doing the same, and here Miyuki was also thinking about the exact same thing. When both of them come outside, Miyuki says, I forgot to bring an umbrella, and Kaguya also says, I forgot to bring an umbrella. But because of this, they cannot walk together under an umbrella, while the reality is that they both have umbrellas in their bags. Miyuki thinks that he should take out his umbrella, but Kaguya would make fun of him, and both knew that the other had an umbrella in their bag, but neither of them was taking it out. So Miyuki tries to make his move, but his plan flops. Kaguya then starts pointing out, you didn't come by bicycle today, you came by train today. This means you knew it was going to rain today. So President, look carefully in your bag, you might find an umbrella. But because of this, Miyuki is now in trouble. Just then, Chika arrives and says, Kaguya, you forgot to bring an umbrella today. Seeing her, Kaguya gets scared. Chika offers her umbrella and says, alright, you take my umbrella today because I have an extra one. And giving her the umbrella, she leaves. Kaguya becomes very sad because her plan flopped. Then she says, President, you can borrow this umbrella. You can do whatever you want with it. Miyuki says, alright, I'll borrow half of the umbrella. And then they both start walking together under the umbrella. Even when the rain stopped, they kept walking together under the umbrella. And the result of today's match was a draw. After that, another member of the student council is shown named Yu Ishigami, who is an important member of the student council because he possesses many skills. Then Yu goes to Miyuki and says to him, President, I want to quit the student council. Miyuki says, oh, so you want to quit the student council. Suddenly he bows down in front of him and says, please don't do this, otherwise we will be ruined, because Miyuki had found Yu with great difficulty. Yu tells him, I feel like I will be murdered in the student council. Kaguya-senpai always looks at me with eyes as if she will take my life. Miyuki asks him why exactly he feels that way. Yu tells him that a month ago he had accidentally made Kaguya angry. After that, we're shown a flashback where Yu was cleaning and found 2 cafe coupons under the table. Just then, Kaguya and Miyuki arrived, discussing how it would be to go to a coffee shop. Kaguya was praising that coffee shop, but Miyuki thought it was an unnecessary waste of money. Kaguya says, it would be great if we had coupons. She reaches under the table but finds nothing there. Just then, she looks towards Yu, who has those very coupons in his hands. She approaches him and threatens, you will not tell anyone about this. But in the present, he doesn't tell all this. He just says, she threatened me. After that, Yu mentions another incident. Then we're shown another flashback in which Yu goes to Kaguya and asks, Kaguya-senpai, do you like the president? Hearing this, Kaguya flusters and says, what are you talking about? Many students students spread rumors about us. Yu asks, is there really nothing like that between you two? Kaguya says, no, there is nothing like that. Yu says, alright, then I will tell the president that you have no feelings for him in your heart. But just then, Kaguya grabs him from behind and tells him, there is no need for you to do all this, causing Yu to feel like he's being choked. Back in the present, he trembles and says, now I feel like Kaguya-senpai has murdered many people before, and now the next victim is going to be Chika-senpai. Just then, Kaguya arrives there with blood on her clothes and a knife in her hand. She says, is Ishigami here? I need to have a meeting with him. Miyuki stands in front of her and says, you cannot do this to him. Kaguya slams her knife on the table and it breaks because it was made of paper. She then explains, I told you that I am helping the drama club. Today was just a rehearsal for that. Seeing her smile, Miyuki says in his mind, she is cute. But from behind him, Yu warns him, all this could be her trick. A professional killer always wears a mask on their face. Hearing this, Miyuki also gets scared and they both go to a corner to talk. Just then, Chika arrives looking terrible. She says, President, and blood comes out of her mouth. But suddenly she smiles and says, Kaguya murdered me. Hearing this, Miyuki asks, is this true? Kaguya says, hey, what are you saying? She is alive. Miyuki then explains to Yu, you shouldn't trust your imagination like this. You should trust your comrades. Saying this, he walks towards Chika. Meanwhile, Kaguya approaches Yu and threatens him, if you tell the president about that thing, something else will take the place of this toy. And yes, stop talking about quitting the student council now. Yu realizes that Kaguya had been listening to their conversation from outside. A short while later, Chika brings a book with her that was related to psychology questions. She tells Miyuki, if I ask you a question from this, I can read your mind. Miyuki thinks she is just saying that. Chika says, okay, I will read your mind and tell you now. So my first question is, tell me how many cats should there be? Miyuki says, 9 cats. Chika says, this shows that president you want 9 children. Hearing this, Kaguya is surprised and Miyuki says in his mind, she guessed it perfectly. Chika then says, come on, let's all play together. She pulls Yu from the side and asks, who is the person that comes from behind in the dark and touches your back? Upon hearing this question, Kaguya's mind starts racing, and she figures out that it must be the person you love because she had already planned all these things in advance. Yu imagines first, and in his imagination, Kaguya comes out from behind him looking very angry, which scares him, and he says, maybe Kaguya-senpai. Hearing this, Kaguya says in her mind, Yu is a good boy, but I'm sorry Yu, I cannot accept your feelings. After that, it is Miyuki's turn, so he also imagines, and he realizes that this represents the person you love, and Kaguya comes to his mind. Therefore, he's just about to answer when he realizes this is a trap, and it would sound like a proposal if he said it. So he uses his brain and says, maybe it's my sweet little sister. Kaguya and Chika's mood gets spoiled. The answer is the person you are very close to and whom you love, so maybe the president's answer is correct. Meanwhile, Yu was panicking a lot because he didn't love her, he was afraid of her. So Yu says, I am not feeling well, I am going home, and he leaves from there. Here Chika says, I am enjoying playing this, so I will ask some questions from the internet too. She asks a question, there is a flower garden and there are many flowers there and you can take as many flowers with you as you want. Chika herself answers first and says, I will first pick the beautiful flowers and take them with me. Kaguya also says, I will make a bouquet of flowers. Then when it's Miyuki's turn, he says, you said we can take as much as we want, right? So I will take a truckload. Meanwhile, Kaguya checks the answer to that question and finds out that it means you will give those flowers to your crush, and seeing this, her face turns red. Chika then comes to her and asks, okay, tell me, what was the answer? Kaguya replies, the answer was about how much you like flowers. Chika says, no, this is unfair, you definitely lied. After that, it is time to go home. We are then shown Kaguya's maid, Ai Hayasaka, who studies in the same school. She comes to Kaguya. Kaguya says, I told you not to come here, didn't I? If the president sees you, it will be a problem, and tell me what kind of look have you put on? Her maid explains, this is the trend nowadays, and I think you should do it too. Kaguya says, will the president like this? I mean, will boys like this? Her maid says, don't underestimate yourself, miss, you should try all this. And after that, she takes her along. The scene from the next day is shown where Kaguya had also applied polish on her nails, but she was wondering what Miyuki would think about it. Miyuki comes there and says, why aren't you going inside? Kaguya says, no, I was just going inside. After that, they both go inside together. There, Chika asked her something, but then she notices that Kaguya is hiding her hands behind her back, so she asks, what happened? Why are you keeping your hands behind you? But Kaguya didn't want to show her. That's why she takes the documents to Miyuki and tries to make Miyuki notice her nails, but he doesn't look at her even once. Because of this, Kaguya feels that Miyuki doesn't like all this. But here Miyuki was very shocked because Kaguya never used to do any fashion before, but if he complimented her, it might be considered harassment. But he says to himself, no, I should say something. Then Chika gets up and starts walking forward, and a fragrance comes from her hair. Yu says, Fujiwara-senpai, your hair smells different today. I mean, it smells different from the fragrance that used to come from your hair before. Chika says, Ishigami, you are very shameless. This This hits you right in the heart, so he says to Miyuki, "President, I am going home." Miyuki says, "Okay fine, but don't die." After that, Yu leaves and Miyuki sighs with relief that it was a good thing he didn't give Kaguya a compliment. But when he looks at Kaguya, he realizes that he is just lying to himself. In reality, he is stopping himself from praising Kaguya's nails. Later, when Kaguya is going home, she was thinking that she should stop doing fashion now. But just then, Miyuki comes from behind and says, "Kaguya, your nails," and he was blushing a lot while saying this. Kaguya also starts blushing, but Miyuki is unable to say anything to her and quickly rides away on his bicycle. Kaguya calls out, "President, what were you saying? Finish your sentence before leaving." Then her maid, Hayasaka, arrives there and Kaguya grabs her, shakes her, and says, "Hey Asaka, tell me what he was about to say." And the result of today's match is Kaguya's victory. After that, the very next day, the same boy who had come to Miyuki for love advice the previous time comes again, and he was here to ask for love advice once again. Miyuki takes him to a room, but he was getting nervous because he didn't know what the guy was going to ask him. And here we see that Kaguya has also come again to secretly listen to their conversation. The boy explains that he wants to hold his girlfriend's hand, but he can't figure out how to do it. Miyuki says, "Oh, so that's the matter," and his face fills with confidence. Miyuki says, "Truly, this boy doesn't even know the ABCs of love. And ABC means A is for falling in love, B is for kissing, and C is for everything else." So Miyuki advises him that he should rent a cruise and sail in the ocean with her, during which he will pretend that his hand accidentally bumped into his girlfriend's, and taking advantage of this, he will hold his girlfriend's hand. Hearing this on the other side, Kaguya starts blushing because she also likes this plan. But the boy says, "President, but renting a cruise would be very expensive." Miyuki says, "Alright then, you get a part-time job. If you work hard to achieve all this, you will enjoy it even more." The boy says, "But renting a cruise will require a license." Showing him his own license, Miyuki says, "Even a small boat's license will work. You should get yours made too." Seeing this, Kaguya says he even has a license. The boy asks, "But what do I have to do to get this license?" Miyuki tells him, "You will have to take a course that gets completed in just 3 days and costs 100,000 yen. The boy says, "But I don't have that much money." Miyuki says, "You should get a part-time job." Then the boy says, "President, but I have a problem. When I get nervous, my hands start sweating. If I hold my girlfriend's hand with these sweaty hands, I will look weird to her." Miyuki says, "I think you have a sweating disease, so you will need to get surgery. For that, you should do a part-time job." The boy also says, "Maybe you are right." Miyuki says, "The place where I do my part-time job is looking for a boy. So will you work there?" The boy agrees. Miyuki says, "If you work there, you will save up enough money in just 40 days to get surgery for your hands and rent a cruise." But hearing all this, Kaguya becomes extremely sad because Miyuki's summer vacation is going to be spent entirely on his part-time job. Because of this, she won't be able to go anywhere with him. Just then, Chika arrives, drags her inside, and says, "The love detectives are here. President, how could you talk about love without us?" And Kaguya was saying, "I am not a part of this." Chika then asks Miyuki, "By the way, President, what is the matter?" Miyuki tells her, "The matter is that he wants to hold his girlfriend's hand, but he can't figure out how to do it." Chika advises the boy that he should just go and hold his girlfriend's hand. He shouldn't overthink it so much, meaning the boy lacked willpower and nothing else. Hearing this, Miyuki becomes very sad because his love advice was completely useless, and the boy gets very happy and says, "I will definitely try my best." Later, during the date, the boy tries and successfully holds his girlfriend's hand, and Kaguya becomes very happy because Miyuki's summer vacation was saved. A few days later, a scene is shown where Yu says to Miyuki, "All club activities are truly useless." But Miyuki says, "No, it's not like that. Club activities exist so that students' physical bodies and mental conditions stay healthy." But Yu says, "No, it simply means that club activities are necessary because if students are idle, they will focus on random things and end up taking the wrong steps. That's why club activities serve to keep them busy." And Yu doesn't like all this because he isn't a member of any club, and all the members in the sports club, no matter how bad they look, have girlfriends. This is why Yu hates all this. Miyuki sees that he is getting lost in his dark thoughts, so he tells him, "Alright fine, we will talk about this later. But we have to talk about the club activity budget because the students have given very little donation this time." Yu says, "Okay, I will make a suggestion," and he cuts some budget from the basketball and football clubs, saying, "We should levy a tax of 500 yen on whoever is a couple." Miyuki says, "Even a dictator doesn't levy taxes like this. Why are you dragging your personal feelings into this?" Yu says, "Yes, I am bringing my personal feelings into this. Is there a problem with that?" Miyuki says, "Yes, why not? There is a huge problem with this." Yu then remembers that whenever any couple talks romantically with each other in front of him, he finds himself all alone. Because of this, he starts crying because even when those guys have girlfriends, they keep themselves so busy with sports club activities that they don't even go out with their girlfriends. That's why Yu felt bad because he didn't have a girlfriend, but the guys who did weren't even taking them out anywhere. So to calm him down, Miyuki says, "If that's the case, then you should join a club too." Yu asks, "Can I join a club while being a student council member?" Miyuki replies, "Yes, absolutely. Chika and Kaguya have also joined clubs. Chika has joined the tabletop games club and Kaguya has joined the Japanese archery club. Laughing, Yu says, "This is perfectly fine for Kaguya-senpai." Miyuki asks him about it. Yu explains, "In Japanese archery, when you pull the arrow back on the bow, your hand touches the chest here. But she doesn't need to worry about that at all because she doesn't have anything there," and he starts talking even more nonsense about it. And just then he also starts saying, if Fujiwara joined the Japanese archery club, her balloons would bounce when she fired an arrow. But Chika arrives there and overhears his vulgar talk. Miyuki was trying to warn him that both of them were right behind him, but he was completely lost in his own world. Just then Chika says, "Ishigami," and after that she rolls up a newspaper into a stick and beats him up. Kaguya says, "It seems Fujiwara has forgiven you, and yes, remember that only Fujiwara has forgiven you." Yu says, "President, I have to go home." And as he leaves, he says, "To be honest, I like both big and small." After he leaves, Chika says to Miyuki, "President, increase my club's budget, I will buy you a cola." Miyuki says, "Don't try to bribe me." Then he says, "By the way, I have never joined any club, so I don't know what actually happens there." Hearing this, Kaguya says in her mind, "What if I ask him to join my club?" But then she thinks, no, this will sound exactly like a proposal. Just then, Chika says, "Then President, why don't you come to our club?" But Kaguya starts saying, "But President, you should also visit my club once for an inspection." But Chika tells him, "No, you should come to our club," and they both grab his hands and start pulling him towards them, which made Miyuki feel very good. A while later, Chika and Kaguya were sitting and talking. Kaguya smiles a little at Chika's words. Chika says, "Kaguya, I really love your smile. Previously, before joining the student council, you never used to smile. People even started calling you Ice." Kaguya also remembers that she used to have very cold behavior back then. Chika says, "Kaguya, I want to see you laughing freely out loud someday." Kaguya says, "That's not going to happen. I will keep my control." Just then, Chika starts talking about her dog, saying, "When my dog eats food, his wiener gets big." Hearing the word wiener, Kaguya spits out her tea. Chika asks, "What happened?" Kaguya says, "Nothing." Chika continues, "Sometimes his wiener just hangs to the right side." Hearing this, she spits out her tea again. Chika asks again, "Did something happen?" Kaguya says, "No, the tea just got stuck in my throat." And she says in her mind, "Man, why am I getting the urge to laugh just hearing the word wiener?" We are then told that in reality, when Kaguya realized that what she knows is very little, she started learning more about human biology and other things, which included some bad words, and wiener is also a dirty word. So she tries to control her laughter. But whenever Chika said the word wiener, Kaguya lost her control even more. Chika then figures out what is exactly happening, so she says it again, wiener. But after this, Kaguya can no longer hold back and starts laughing out loud. Kaguya then tells Chika, "Oh man, stop it now." But Chika gets very excited seeing this and keeps making her laugh by repeatedly saying, "Wiener, wiener." Just then, Miyuki arrives there. Kaguya tells Chika, "Please don't say this in front of the president." Chika says, "Don't worry, I am a good girl, so I won't say this word myself, but someone else will." She goes to Miyuki and starts asking, "President, tell me, there's a small dog that looks like a sausage. What is it called?" Kaguya blurts out, "It is called a hot dog." Chika asks many such questions, but Kaguya answers all of them, feeling that she has won, and now Miyuki won't say the word wiener from his mouth. But now Chika gets very irritated, so she just says, "President, I wanted you to say the word wiener." But whenever you were about to say the word wiener, Kaguya interrupted. Miyuki says, "Are you guys shameless? What are you trying to make me say? I am leaving." And he runs away from there. Kaguya says, "No, President, I am not like that," and she becomes sad. Then Chika says, "Wiener," so she starts laughing again and says, "Man, just stop it now." And we see that Yu had bumped right into the door and his nose is bleeding, and he wonders what these two are talking about. So he goes and asks Chika, "Do you also have one?" Chika says, "Have what?"